My name's Kim Frost. I've been doing this for 16 years, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal project, and then I'll go back in time and show you some of my earlier work, and then bring you up to like current work. I do a lot of different types of photography, but this project is portraits solely, so everything else that I picked is kind of person-oriented. So I gotta get a little bit sauced here. One second. Oh my. Okay. So I love photography. I find it endlessly fascinating. If I were to win the lottery, I would continue to take photographs. Let's see. I don't know if I should just start with my project or start where I started. Let me start with this. I'll start with the project. This started in 2017, and it was following the Trump election that I really started to lose faith in humanity. And I like to challenge my beliefs. I feel like we believe certain things, we put them in a box, they get shoved in a corner, and every once in a while I want to pull that box out, dust those things off, pull them out, look at them, re-examine them, see if I still think those things. And so I was thinking, gosh, I didn't vote for this guy. I can't believe other people did. Maybe I'm not the only one. Hopefully there are still good people in the world. And so at the time, I've lived in Richmond my entire life. I've lived on all sides of the river. I've lived on, east, west, everywhere. And I'd always wanted to do a portrait project in Richmond, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. I've lived in all of the different neighborhoods, and they all have charm and their own flavor, and I've always loved that about Richmond, but I couldn't figure out where that one place was that I was going to shoot this project. And I knew that because I needed electricity, that it was probably going to have to be on private property, and then I didn't want it to be like neighborhood exclusive. So at the time, in 2017, I was homeschooling my son, and we would go to the library all the time. I don't know if you guys frequent the public libraries, but they are a tremendous resource. I would go to them as much as you can. Lots of wonderful programs. And so we were going to the Main Street Library because we lived in Fulton Hill at the time. And every month they have an art show. And it occurred to me while I was there, because of all of the different types of people that migrate into that library, that might be the perfect place. So I pitched the idea, and they accepted it, which was amazing. So I set up a studio on the second floor, and I was there for 8 days in April. And it was a tiny little room with a low ceiling with these big pendant lights that hung down. The walls were red, and it barely fit my seamless in there. And every day I would have to break it down and put it in a closet. And so originally what I wanted to do was just photograph anybody that wanted to be photographed. I was going to print it out right then and there, give them the picture, take down a little bit of biographical information and put it in a book. But it ended up being so hugely popular that people were lining up. So there was no printing, no biographic info, nothing like that. All right. Sorry. Whew. Anyhow, so I have a cheat sheet here. Make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, so we'll get started. So, anyhow, I'll tell you, I had a really difficult childhood, and because of that, I know that you cannot judge a book by its cover. Just because someone has a, certain facade, certain look, you have no idea what kind of darkness they have going on inside. So I try to approach everybody that I talk to in life, people that I approach and just pass. I try to approach people without judgment and without bias. And I am always very honored when someone allows me to take their photograph. And I'm also very honored when clients hire me. They allow me to do what I love. And so anyhow, these people. This is Teddy Parham. She considers herself an activist. She's been kicked out of City Hall. She's amazing. She showed up. I kept wanting to photograph her, And she kept showing up and talking. And then on the very last day, very last spot, she showed up in white to be photographed on white. And it was so difficult. But I have like 50 photographs of her, and they're all so delightful. But this was one of my favorites because I think it just looks a lot like her. I don't remember his name, unfortunately, but he worked at the library. There were a lot of people that worked within the library system that came to pose, which was kind of a problem because people would show up in clothing that they didn't wear to work, and I felt like in a way that wasn't really in the spirit of the project, so I didn't include a lot of those people. This is Lord Ninjaz. Yeah, he's a musician. This is Mary Elizabeth, and she's an actress. These two are a couple, and this is, I think, one of the first times they were photographed, and I ended up photographing everybody that I photographed. I printed, I think they were 13 by 19, and they were displayed in the library together on the wall. When the show came down, they all got to take their portrait home. I really wish they were wearing different shirts. I love everything about this except for their shirts. This is Bobby Oliver. He's a reverend. He's in his 80s. He's African American and American Indian. He ran a cleaning business, and he said he had a station wagon that was full of brooms and buckets and all kinds of things, and that people used to stop him and ask him to pose with his car. And he would get a chuckle out of it because what people didn't know is that he put 3 children through college with that cleaning service. He also remembers what it's like to live in the African American communities when there would be funeral processions, and a casket would be placed on the back of a horse-drawn carriage, and people would sing their way to the cemetery. This is Susan Victoria. She is I think she's currently a photo stylist. This guy, I don't remember his name, but he was unemployed. He wants to work on vintage cars. He was there waiting for his girlfriend. I took a gazillion photographs of him because he has such a sweet face. But at one point he was standing like this, and I saw the tattoo on his arm, and I just asked him to drop his other arm. Don't remember her name. I have all of their names, but I do not remember them. I remember the people that told me their story. This is Kelly Libby, and she has a podcast of her own called Unmonumental. She's a storyteller. You should look her up. She's fascinating. This guy is Randy Hoff. He worked at a semiconductor plant in Sandston. He in his younger years, he fell off a barn, like apparently an incredibly tall barn, fell off a barn, landed on a tractor tire, and that's what saved his life. But because of that, he ended up with a really bad back injury and a head injury. He ended up with a lot of depression and mental illness throughout his life. As an adult, he worked at the semiconductor plant that was out in Sandston. In, I think it was 2009, it shut down. And a lot of the people that had, had a career there were fired with no severance. And in 2011, he lost his house and he ended up living on the street. He is a fascinating character. When I met him, he was working at the library trying to help other people find jobs. And he's a total sweetheart. This project recently has kind of resurfaced, and he's one of the people that I've been in communication with. I don't know this individual either. What is her name? Deborah Driver. She works for the library too. This is Maggie Smith. She is in charge of children's programming for Code Virginia, I think. Does anybody know her? You guys know her? Don't remember his name. Super sweet guy. This is Nolan. He's security guard at the library.
That's a nice photo.
Isn't it?
I really like that.
He was just so charismatic and adorable. I was so happy that he posed for me.
He's so manly.
It's really comfortable.
Yeah. This is Catherine Ibarra. She works for corporate America, but she is a journalist at heart, and she has a degree in journalism. She's shown a lot of interest in the project and is interested in helping me go around and collect some biographical information, so I'm hoping that that might be a reality. This is Jasmine. Jasmine frequents the library, but Jasmine would not give me any sort of personal information whatsoever because she fears for her life. So no address, no nothing on the contact form. This is Kevin Kravitz. He's an actor. He was struck by lightning. He was listening to Rolling Stones album, Honky Tonk Woman, I think. He was lifting the tone arm to put it onto the record, and lightning struck the chimney, came down the fireplace through the cast iron surface, and electrocuted him.
What was the stereo on?
It was apparently right beside the fireplace.
How random.
Yeah.
That happens to everybody listening to rock.
This is my son. I just threw him in because why not? He's so cute. This particular individual, I don't know a whole lot about him. I think that he was homeless. The address that he gave me was the Subway down on Main Street in Chaco Bottom. But he was very troubled. It was sad. This is a friend of mine, Geraldine Duskin. She used to be a costume designer, so she's a big fan of clothes, and I was happy she showed up. The one thing about this particular location was that it was so small and so tight that I had to use small light boxes, and often they were kind of too close and they weren't necessarily flattering. So I feel like I don't like the shadow on her face. Because of the conditions that I was working with, I felt like the light was really aggressive, and while that benefited men, it wasn't great for photographing women. Don't remember him. I think he was a basketball coach at one time.
Did you mention how you're finding these people, or?
All of these people were just coming into the library, and they knew I was there, or I'd see them walk by and I'd ask them if they wanted to be photographed. And that was key to this project. It's a lot easier to photograph someone that volunteers to be photographed. Someone that doesn't want to be photographed is a little bit harder.
How many days? Is it all in one day? Or how many days?
I was there for 8.
8 days?
Yeah.
And how many people did you photograph?
I'm not sure. Sorry, my stomach. I think it's like 45, maybe.
What kind of camera do you use?
Canon, digital. She's homeless. She's a homeless woman. She told me a lot about the shelters here. I think that you have to be out at like 6 a.m. in the morning. Like even if you're lucky enough to get a bed, you've got to be clear out like so early. It's unbelievable. This guy didn't have any faith in my abilities. He didn't. James. I don't remember his last name. But he has a troubled past and he's totally switched it around. I think he wants to be mayor. He's awesome. Okay, so let's see if that was the last one. Oh, no. One more. I think that's the end of my portrait project. Okay, so this is, and if I run long, because I just took a bunch of stuff and threw it in here. I haven't tested this. So if I run long, just pull me. So in the beginning of my career, I was originally a painter. I didn't really want to be a photographer. I didn't think of photography as an art, really, in a lot of ways. But I was painting, and I couldn't paint fast enough to make a living. And I got hired by another photographer to help out, and we would do these really big jobs. I wasn't even like looking at light or studying anything that he was doing. It was so stupid. In fact, we would walk into environments and he'd be like, "Kim, look at the beautiful light." And I would go, "Where?" I couldn't see it at all. But we would do these shoots, and it was like I would paint away like 6 months trying to paint some picture, and then every day he would be shooting constantly, creating all of these amazing works of art. And I was like, oh my God, the immediate gratification, this is so great. And, we did like a big shoot for like Bon Secours Hospital System, and he made like $35,000 in like 3 days. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe this is something that I could do. And at the time when I was painting, I would take photographs and collage them together and then paint from that. So I was already taking pictures. I just wasn't thinking about it as art. And or I would like stage photo shoots and photograph it and paint from that. So this photographer in particular had come down from New York. He really, demanded a large budget. People would come to him, and instead of just turning them down, he would overbid the job. So they would say, oh, we just can't afford it. But because I was working with him and I knew what the client wanted to pay, I just went around and started picking up all of his crumbs. And this was one of my first shops. I shot for Richmond Parents and 50 Plus. They're both like monthly publications. They're newsprint, kind of like Style. You find them in the vestibule. And so I was shooting for Richmond Parents and 50 Plus, and it was like both ends of the spectrum, right? And so I'd go out and photograph kids, and then I would go out and photograph these older people. And these are the original Rockettes. These are like two. And this is back when I shot everything at like f11 because for some reason I wanted everything to be sharp. But one of the things that I had to do for 50 Plus is I would have to go out and photograph an event page every month. It's really hard to walk up to complete strangers and ask them if they're 50 plus. So I think in a way I did the magazine a real disservice because I would just look for everyone that had white hair or no hair. So it was like, and those are the people that I would photograph. But I really cut my teeth in terms of like approaching people just out of the blue and asking if I could photograph them. And often if I was approaching someone that was 80 and saying, hey, are you 50? They would be flattered and then they'd let me take their picture. So it was really endearing. So this was for 50 Plus. This is RVA Magazine. I was there in the beginning when this all came out, and this is all the embarrassing work that I'm going to show you now. So because I was a painter, I really loved color, and because I didn't really understand how to operate my camera, I relied heavily on Photoshop. And at that time, we were just trying to do anything that we could do with the minimal resources that we had to draw the eye, to make someone pause for a minute. See, tons of Photoshop. This picture I got in a lot of trouble for. This photograph, this was part of a fashion spread, and originally the guy was on the ground and she was pulling his hair, but he didn't have a believable face, and the big ticket item in the shoot was those shoes. So we really needed to feature the shoes.
What shoes?
So what you don't, see is that this is a platform. So we went out to this location. We thought we were going to go photograph this couple. It was going to be a jungle and this greenhouse. And we got there, and all of the plants were stacked up like on a table. And then there are all of these hanging baskets. So we needed to like embed them in order for us to have like a jungle type feel. And we had the guy down on the ground, and she was pulling his hair just because we needed to get all the components of the wardrobe in there. But it wasn't working, so I switched them out because she's beautiful, and yeah. I paid the price for that. So this was a bunch of my friends. They were called the Mustache Gang, and they would go around to bars dressed up. They grow these mustaches, dressed in these clothes, and just go around. So this was just a random shot that I took in a bar. I have like a whole series of this kind of thing. I love these so much. At one point, I like showed these to an art director, and it was a no-go. So, but I think they're awesome. I mean,
It looks very like a band photo.
yeah, I mean, the fact that none of that is staged. This is Richmond Burlesque, and I know that these are bad, you guys. I know, but the lighting is good, right? And this is in the beginning. So
It's not bad.
these are all burlesque photographs. This was all for RVA Mag. I shot a ton of pinup. I shoot lots and lots of women. Women come to me. Look at the bad job I did. Like you can see the white from the background is on her underwear. More pinup. I did a calendar for all of the female-owned businesses. Well, not all of them, but for like 12 female-owned businesses in Richmond at one point. This won Best Engagement Photo in Style.
I
I can see.
These are vegan bodybuilders. These people don't eat meat, you guys. Veggie only. You know what I always hated about this though is I didn't like all of that stuff down there is basically my recycling and things that we found in the alley. And then and it's all gray because we just mixed all the different spray paints that we had in the studio. And then my assistant was back there like holding the smoke. And what else can I tell you about that? But I only had like a couple flashes and umbrellas, and so I had 2 light sources instead of one really big one. And you can see the two highlights on her leg.
So is the shine their natural body shine, or is that like enhanced Photoshop shine?
That's baby oil that they put on themselves. So this was for Taboo. I used to shoot all their calendars. More. Get hired a lot, or I used to get hired a lot to shoot that kind of thing. This is a model. Need Supply. I shot for Need Supply for 3 years. This is a Wes Anderson inspired lookbook that I shot for them, which I really liked a lot. So you can see a few of these.
Nice.
Is that low?
Sorry. Huh?
Looks like my friend.
Will? So these were tests for the Martin Agency. I got called in. They wanted me to bid to photograph all of their employees. And I don't like big agency work because I find that often you're asked to shoot the job before you shoot the job. So I spent a week photographing all of my friends, which meant that I then owed them all photographs, and then submitted my bid, submitted my samples, and Martin decided to keep it in-house. So I didn't get the job. So this is just me just trying to take a simple headshot and make it into something a little bit more interesting. Models, photograph a lot of models. Phasing out of this, model portfolios are really hard to get paid for this kind of photography. This photo in particular, I think I accidentally shot it like 3200 ISO. It just breaks my heart.
Still gorgeous.
So I like to work with the same girls over and over again, just because I feel like we kind of get to know one another and I start to understand what they're good at and what they're not good at. So often I'll hire the same model over and over. This is at the VMFA. I love to shoot there. It's like within walking distance of my house, and there are all of these little natural light boxes that occur there. I really like to shoot in parking decks too, and that place is a gem and it's close by, so I go there all the time. This is inside the VMFA. This was for Dark Beauty. This was just like a personal project. This is personal work too. This is Sunny Slagle. It's striking. This is just for a friend of mine. She was selling some lingerie, and so boom. This is Sunny as well. More models. That's natural light, just in the studio. That's
So do
true.
you mostly use lights and not natural light, it looks like?
I use tons of natural light.
You do.
Yeah, I shoot a ton of different types of things, and I feel like it all informs one another. I can't really shoot the same kind of thing all the time, or I'll get really bored. In the beginning, I didn't have any gear, you know, and I wanted really badly to learn studio lighting. But it took me a long time to be able to afford it. And back when I started, you couldn't just rent it, and no one would loan it to me. So I had to get to a place where I could buy it. And then for years, I had like 2 heads and some umbrellas, and that's all I had. This is natural light too. That's in the studio. And this is just a great big window. She's in a V-flat, tucked in a corner. The window was like right here, and I just had it covered with I buy this really cheap shears from like Walmart. I used to buy them at Kmart. They're $6, and you just tape them up, and you can just soften the light. And this is her and her dog, and that's my wedding dress. And she didn't like this picture because she didn't like that her dog's nipples were showing.
Photoshop.
This is Annalise again.
That was the same lady?
Yeah, this is her again.
Oh, I love that.
And this is the pumpkin patch. Gallmeyer Farms. This is the old houses on the property there.
Did Jennifer Mantura do the
Yeah.
makeup? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Jennifer. I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah,
I
she
love
really
those
loved
photos.
Annalise. They were good
Yeah,
friends. So yeah, she helped me on all this. Courtney Hoff, I think. This is a real person. God, what is her name? I can remember it. Can't remember. So I get hired by women to photograph them, make them look beautiful, and I enjoy that. Also by guys. This guy's a boxer. I have some really great shots of him as a boxer, but I could not locate them today. His name is Ed Mumford.
What kind of cues do you give to people? I mean, how do you? They seem so comfortable, but I don't know. Like he has an expression. I'm just kind of curious what you're talking to him about when you're saying-
I am not a small talker. I just dive in and start talking to people about their life, their love life, their hopes and dreams, their favorite memories, their favorite place, what they're going to do for dinner. And then I'm also, I guess, humble in a way. I'll talk about whatever's going on with me, and I embarrass myself pretty regularly. And not only that, I shoot a lot. Most of my photo shoots, if I'm photographing a person for like a personal branding or a portrait project, I'll say I want 2 hours. Usually we'll shoot for like an hour and a half. Most people start to get tired right around 45 minutes. But I feel like you need at least 20 minutes up front to start to wear them down. You've got to, and I have to get to know them too, but I can see it in the shoot. You'll see them uptight and awkward, and then there's this moment where like literally you can see their shoulders drop and you can see that they've relaxed. So I like to pass that like 20-minute threshold, and then I feel like that's where the quality photographs start to begin.
Do you switch around your lighting setup much?
Yes, I like to light from left to right because I
On the
feel
same
like we
shoot.
read. Do what?
On the same session?
Yes. Yes. So this is Richmond Magazine. I shoot a lot of fashion editorial, or what remains of fashion editorial here in Richmond. There isn't a lot. Print is having a hard time. I would like to do more of this kind of work. I do a lot of bridal. I shot this with a tilt shift. That's why it's blurry on the sides. I don't know why I decided to do that. And tilt shifts, you can't manually focus them, so it's a real slow go. And she was in front of that window, so she was backlit. So I have like an assistant over here that was like firing a flash, holding a flash and firing onto her so that I could focus. But man, that was a long day. And after I pulled that stunt, I did not get hired for a while. So more Richmond Bride. And these are all long, tall. This would get cropped to like, a long square. So I have to leave room for the masthead. More Richmond Bride. And this is the kind of stuff that really makes my heart sing. I love, this is all mostly natural light with just reflectors. This is the most recent one. This is in the elevator at the ICA. And while this looks like an easy shot, it was not. The light that comes out of those little holes is really, really low light. And I wanted to do the elevator shot first. We knew it was going to be the cover, and I wanted to do it first. But they were like, no, because the first shot's usually like the suckiest shot of the day. So they were like, no, let's just wait. And then it ended up getting postponed and didn't happen until the very end. Because even though the museum wasn't open that day, they were doing a lot of repairs. And so there were people moving in and out through all the different environments that we wanted to shoot. So this one got postponed. So by the time we got to the elevator to shoot this, it was like the museum was shutting down. We had like 45 minutes. And so So the art director's like actually holding the flash over here. And I'm standing outside the elevator trying to get a shot. Really easy to take a beautiful photograph of something that's already beautiful. I think that photography kind of exists in the extremes. Not that any of my photographs today are really checking that box, but you know, when you think about a person in front of you and they're three-dimensional and they're nuanced and they're moving and you're talking to them, once that gets smashed and flattened into a two-dimensional image, it loses so much. So it's like it has to be a little bit more, it has to be extra. It needs to be more beautiful, more dramatic, more ugly, more scary, you know, more sad, more touching. So don't hesitate, you know, push the people that you are photographing. If you photograph people, you know, ask for what you want. Don't leave and go home and have regret, you know, because people, they want to end up with something great too, you know, and especially if it's someone like a model or someone that's hired you, it's a collaborative effort and they understand that. So, you know, ask for what you want. Okay, so this is just, we're almost at the end now. This is Ben Harper. What did he used to do autopsies, I think, for the Army for many years. But he wrote a book on, it's called A Knife in the Dark. He wrote a book about Jack the Ripper. And he's been researching him for years, and he thinks he knows who he is. So he needed a branding package. So I needed something that was kind of dark. So I went to the Poe Museum, which is right there on the left, and we basically just shot all over the property. So I just wanted to kind of show you like what I give a client. And this was like a 1-hour session, and I ended up giving him, I think, like 55 photographs or something like that. And he was a person that brought a lot to the shoot, so he was easy to photograph. He looks like Santa Claus. He had props, and he was just an enchanting person. But the reason I wanted to shoot there is because of that little memorial or whatever it is back there, because it's like a little studio. So this is not back there. This is shooting. I was in the other courtyard shooting through. This is inside that little memorial. And what's nice about that is that, you know, I can pull him away from the light or get him close to the light, cut the light. I really love shadows. Back when I was younger, I only wanted diffuse light. Like the best, I would pray. I'd be like, please, diffused light, you know, I wanted an overcast day because I was so afraid of like bright light and dark shadows. I didn't know how to handle it. But now it's like, I love shadows and I love drama. So the fact that, you know, this scenario and this environment kind of fit his brand was ideal.
And these are all natural light.
These are all natural light, yeah. I use a lot of like bounce cards in the studio and cards to cut the light, black cards, white cards, and I mean, you can do a lot. So that's the one I think he's used for his website. So now we're at the end.
Does he actually smoke that pipe?
I don't think so. I don't think so. This is my dear friend Ken. So this is in line with kind of the work that I want to be doing now, like my own personal work. It's something that's more of like a fashion portrait. I really, really love black and white. It may be because I'm lazy and I don't like to do color processing. And I don't think that I'm good at it. I like that it's more of a line drawing. This hasn't been retouched. This is straight out of camera. So if I go in and I work on this, I'll go in and I'll straighten out his sleeves and things like that. John Henley, he's a landscape photographer. I totally love this photo. I shot him last week with Adam's help, and I have so many of him that I adore. But he knew how he wanted to look in these photographs.
That's
This is Peg Myrick. I photographed, does anybody know Peg? You do. So I photographed her for Cure magazine, which is like a cancer magazine, and she is dying. She has 3 to 6 months to live, and she is just an incredible person. I photographed her at the VMFA because I love that place. And I was so honored that because she knows that her days are numbered, that she would spend any time with me. And one of the things that she said was that, in a way, we could all go tomorrow. But she knows that her days are numbered. She knows that she only has a certain amount of time. So she's taking advantage of it. And I love this because I was just so happy that I got to photograph her and that I actually got a smile out of her. And she's a dear. So if you're not following Peg, you should follow Peg on Instagram because she's a gem. Okay, I think that might be it. Does anybody have any questions?